Thank you. So, when I first got a call from Julie, she said, come and talk about innovation. In the abstract, I've done that. It takes a few hours. And then she says, and talk about your water machine or Stirling engines or medical products, a list of other things, what we're doing for DARPA, prosthetic limbs. Each one of those takes an hour. Wherever I go to speak, all I ever ask for is that I can spend 20 minutes of whatever the time is groveling and begging for support for FIRST. That's the price people pay. She said, you have a total of 20 minutes. So I could talk a little bit about all those other things or skip them, and we'll just go right to the groveling and begging for support for FIRST. Very efficient. So I told her that's what I should do, but then I realized just explaining I'm going to do that would take the 3 minutes I've now used. Then I'd only have 17 minutes to grovel and beg. So she's giving me a few extra minutes. I just used them up. We still can't talk about anything else. I did actually put together, a while ago, a few spliced together pieces of one of my visits to probably the only remaining credible source of news in this country, Stephen Colbert. And I put together pieces that ought to matter to prove, A, yeah, we really do critical stuff with technology. He rides around on an iBot. It sort of shows you what it can do, and he's funny. It also points out, hey, no matter where I go, we talk about FIRST, because when he asks me to come on his shows, I say the same thing. You can make a jackass out of me if you want, but there's got to be one serious moment where we get to convince people they need to participate in FIRST. And he agreed. And each time I've done it, he's honored that. But also he goes into a little diatribe, which we all will think is funny, I'm sure. But there are a lot of people in this country, not just comedians, that will stereotype the world of science and technology in ways that are always funny, as long as you don't look at the deeper and darker consequences. Athletes and people from Hollywood are always young, enthusiastic, rich, role models. Kids rarely see scientists and engineers. If they do, they're middle-aged white males, German accent, frizzy hair, sociopaths. Always beat up in the end by the young swashbuckling hero. If they're not that, the scientists and engineers, if they happen to be young ones, or like the Einstein's daughters or our holy cows, they're always depicted as guys, as squeaky, geeky little kids that everybody picks on, and the girls are anything but the attractive people that kids aspire to be like. You'll see Stephen Colbert representing the slightly different version of how the general public looks at the world of science and technology, and it's funny. But when you look at the statistics on the number of kids in this country that are studying science and technology with the passion that there are kids bouncing balls, when you look at the number of women and minorities in this country, in San Diego, that literally never, by the time they're 10 or 11 years old, even think about science and technology as accessible, rewarding, and fun, it's probably the single largest criteria I think we ought to be worrying about if this country is going to survive. So before we get to seriously why you ought to help FIRST, we'll look at 3 minutes of real news, mostly because I figured I had to do something else or Julie will kill me. And so a very short piece of news, which I hope will be the fun part of the evening. And Julie, I really would love to talk, and I've already talked to a few people here, and in my own enlightened best interest, I would love to talk about our prosthetic device and other things. We can't. There's now 19 minutes left. So we're going to go on to something that I think it may seem like a stretch to some of you, but all night I've been hearing about innovation as the key to the future, and I've been hearing about cooperation in the community. I've been trying to push communities around this country and around the world to cooperate for quite a while. San Diego's doing pretty well. We'll give you some statistics on how you're doing with FIRST, but we could do better. I'd also point out that we're kidding ourselves if we think the CEOs that are now the CEOs are going to be responsible for the innovation of the future. By the time that project is well enough done that it exists and you can talk about it, most of the innovation was done. You're edging towards that cash cow world of the existing infrastructure. In fact, I long ago decided the only definition I have for technology is anything that wasn't available when you were a kid. To my grandparents, technology was airplanes. To my parents, technology was television. To us, technology is computers. Maybe to the youngest of us, technology is the internet. Kids walking around today, twittering around. The internet to them is no different than electricity or running water. It's part of the infrastructure. It's not innovation, it's just there. The innovation community that's going to be here in 10 or 20 years will be a function of those daughters of Einstein's ideas. They will be working at companies that don't exist yet. They'll be working in industries that don't exist yet. Most of them can't believe there was a time before email. They don't understand how people could survive that way. And 20 years from today, you're going to wake up and there'll be things going on that we weren't talking about tonight. The goal is to have it happening in your city and in this country. And the only way that's going to happen is if this country starts to focus, as it used to, as a society that was young and courageous. I don't think it's a coincidence that it was in this country that we had, Edison and Wilbur and Orville. And today, 10 years ago, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. But this is the first time in human history that you look around the globe and there is incredibly fierce competition in one single thing among young people, and that's knowledge and education, and technology's made it a level playing field. A lot of people in this country are afraid of that and are trying to put policies in place to allow us somehow to have an unrealistic and unnecessary advantage there. It won't work, I hope. It's unethical, it's immoral, it's stupid. I'd rather see a world where 6.3 billion people all have the capacity to create wealth than a world where our 3.75% are trying to protect ourselves and believe somehow we have both the capability and the right to win because everybody else has been disabled. That's not a competition that would be much fun.